So what is a yuga? A yuga is a Sanskrit word that's often described as an epoch, era of time. So if we're in one age and it's a dark age, we're there for a certain amount of time, and if we're in a light age, we're there for a certain amount of time. It's similar to the gold and silver, bronze, and the Iron Age that is described in the Bible. Plato talks about it as one great year, 26,000 year cycle. This is also referred to as a precession of the equinox, where the earth wobbles at such a slow rate that it slowly draws a line through the zodiac and goes through the different ages. And we've said that we're going into this age of Aquarius. So why does it take so long to go into a different age, this age of Aquarius? Because it is a 26,000 year cycle. It takes 2,000 or more years to go through each part of the zodiac. So I'm talking about two different things here. There is a going through the parts of the zodiac, and then there is a fair chunk of that time that is the Golden Age. A lesser chunk of that time is the Silver Age, or the Treta Yuga. A lesser chunk of that time is the Bronze Age, and it gets smaller and smaller until we get to the Kali Yuga, or the Iron Age, which is the darkest of the dark. And this explains that if you look at his recent history, we have been through the darkest times. In fact, in the medieval times in history, we were burning people for being spiritual, literally killing people for being spiritual. And the opposite is true of the Golden Age, where being spiritual was just a part of everyday life. So where are we in this epoch and era? Are we still in this Kali Yuga? Are we in the darkest age still? Well, no. I think we've just moved from Kali Yuga and we've moved into what's called the Bronze Age. And the way this works is we move from the Golden Age into the Silver, into the Bronze, into the Kali Yuga, and back to the Bronze, the Silver, and the Gold. So it's like this clock where you descend down one side and then you ascend back up. So we are in the ascension cycle now, where the darkest of the dark has already happened. The wars, the people being burnt at the stake. I believe we're at a point now where we can lift, but we don't know how to, because we still have the trauma of the previous age. Once you release the trauma of the previous age, we would see that we already are in a lighter time. Consciousness has already shifted. People are awakening at a far faster rate than they were before. So if we're out of that age, then why does it take so much time to release that? So in the light age, in the Golden Age, the Satya Yuga, there was no trauma. There was no disalignment. So the body, the spirit, the mind were in complete alignment. The energy body, the pranic body, had no baggage. It had no emotional baggage yet. It hadn't programmed and disassociated. It was a connected consciousness. And it's like when scientists say that we only access such a small part, we only access 10% of our brain. And what if we could access a lot more? So I believe the spiritual age, the Satya Yuga, the Golden Age, was that time where we could access more information. What was going on in our body was information. Now it's just inflammation and disease. So we become more disconnected. And thus there is more need throughout the ages to create tools. So in the Treta Yuga, or the Silver Age, there was a need to write down these things, and that was where the Mayan systems, the Vedas were written in this time about 6,000 years ago as we were descending. And we moved down even further into the Bronze Age, and there was a need to simplify this even further because the information was too hard to grasp. So we had the likes of the Buddhas and Patanjalis, we had the likes of Lao Tzu, Confucius, creating even simpler systems. There is a very familiar way in which Buddhism reads, and the way that the Raja Yoga system, Patanjali's yoga system, or the Eightfold Yoga path, which most people who are stretching are following this. You know, you're doing asana, you're doing Patanjali's Ashtanga or 8-limb yoga. So there was a need to just simplify it a little bit because the Vedas was already becoming too hard to grasp. So again, the Bronze Age, which was a time of war. I mentioned Lao Tzu when he wrote, didn't write it, he spoke about it and then it was written down. The Way, the Tao Te Ching, it was in a time of war that he didn't have much hope. And you know, in the time of the Gautama Buddha, there was also a lot of great wars. So this time, about 2,500 years ago, there was the need to simplify the method even further to something that was digestible like a multivitamin pill. Now, however, we are coming out of that time. Consciousness is coming back. People are awakening. So when we have these downloads, we're awakening. When the next generation comes in and they already understand concepts that took the previous 2 generations years and years and years to understand, we understand consciousness is shifting. So if we're out of that dark age, we can start to let go of the trauma. But that is the hardest part. We are the densest we've ever been. Even though consciousness is rising, we're the densest we've ever been, because all of the heaviness, all of that disassociation from emotions and this negative patterning from fear, and there was reason, great reason to have fear and to program this fear into our body to save us. We don't actually need to have that level of fear anymore. And the program takes so long in the physical to transform. You have to tell the program hundreds and hundreds of times that it's okay to change the program. The program doesn't just change overnight. So we're in this time of reprogramming very slowly the organism, because that's how the physical organism works. If it was able to just be programmed like that, we would be able to change our reality in dramatic ways and life would be changing all the time. So the reason that the physical reality and our physical reality is so hard to transform is because it's a safety. It's a safety mechanism, so we don't just blow ourselves up, you know, make one decision that fucks up everything. We make a series of decisions and the majority rules. So if we work and chip away at something, eventually we'll gain momentum and we will replace that. And that's the role of people on Earth right now, is to reprogram and persistently, consistently start to grind at the wheel to imprint a new version of what consciousness can be. It will take time. It may take hundreds of years, and that could be that transition from the bronze, from the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, back into the Bronze Age, back into the Silver Age, and eventually into the Golden Age. That period that we're in, where we're just out of the densest age and we're moving back into the Bronze Age, it can take years and years. And that's why when we say, well, when's the age of Aquarius, is it going to happen? Will it be a distinct change? No, it won't be a distinct change. It's happening over hundreds, maybe even 1,000 years. Probably 100 years. That's my guess. It's probably around 50 to 200 years where we are transitioning out of that age, and we like to put a clear marker on things. It's not a clear marker. There is a bridging period where we will lighten more and more and more, and there will be generations of this work as we lift the consciousness. The consciousness, remember, is already there. It's just how do we imprint it into the hardware. So the program already exists, but the printing and the reprinting of that software into the hardware takes the time. And that looks like a lot of purging, a lot of getting somewhere and having a breakthrough and then relapsing back into the physical reality where it kind of consumes you, the darkness consumes you, the fear and the patterns consume you again. So eventually we work through these patterns, we clear them to a point. We also shift the culture along the way where it is more acceptable to be a spiritual person. It's more acceptable to go through these purging cycles. People become more in tune with the moon cycles, with the astrological cycles. And we shift, we transform the culture in a way that eventually the younger generation become literate, spiritually literate from day dot. They speak that language. It's like when a child learns a language from a young age, they just get it. And the same is true for spirituality. It's a way of seeing the world. It's also a way that if you're one spiritual person speaking to another, you have a different way, you have these different languages that you can speak to each other where people get. It's not the common speak. And that's where these older cultures, and why we're probably so attracted to yoga, Hinduism, Vedanta, Tantra, this type of thing, because there is room there in that culture for these spiritual concepts. They exist in the concepts of the gunas, the different modes of existence, your different constitutions, your astrology and your soul and your purpose. All of these words and these languages and these subtle layers of life are written into the culture so we can understand, we can speak that language, which is a reason why I'm interested in Vedanta and Tantra and yoga. It's because it speaks a language that my culture couldn't give me, because my culture is a material culture, and so we talk about material things. But when we talk about more in-depth things in spirituality and the subtle layers between spirituality, it's a way of speaking in high definition. I can speak in the yoga traditions, I can speak in the Vedic traditions, and I can speak in high definition. If I'm speaking in a Western language, there's bits, there's glitches, and it doesn't quite work. So this is why we're retracing. This is why I'm in India. This is why we're interested in these things, because we're retracing the older cultures that had context for these spiritual ways of being. It was a part of the culture. It was a part of the life. There was an option to be a householder, but there was also an option after being a householder to be a renunciate, and that was seen as quite normal in this cultural context. So it is trying to bridge that world, and we came from that. Yeah, we came from a higher vibration, regressed into more times of density, into more materiality, and we're now at the point again where we're starting to refine these old cultures, these older languages of understanding this spirituality, and they become tools to bridge the gap as we start to lift in momentum and raise the consciousness. Remember, consciousness is always happening. It is like clockwork. It will work through us. It's only for us to recognize the patterns that are happening through us and to try to reconnect and simplify that process by meeting it halfway. So that's why my fascination is in the past, because what I learned from the past and the ancient cultures is what we're refinding and what we're going back to. So it's only because the Bronze Age we're back in the Bronze Age. So what matched there needs to match again. What did we do when we regressed through the Bronze Age? We need to pick up those parts as we ascend through the Bronze Age and into the Silver and into the Golden Age. I hope that makes sense. Let me know.